So we're talking about triangles, still triangles, and basically when triangles are congruent. Congruent. Do you know what congruent means? Well, let's look at this little picture right here. Congruent is same size, same shape. So congruent is exactly the same. Not congruent is different sizes or different shapes. So any shapes are congruent. What makes them exactly the same is if all the corresponding sides and angles are equal. All pairs of corresponding sides and all pairs of corresponding angles are equal. So specifically with triangles, it's going to be 3 pairs of corresponding sides and 3 pairs of corresponding angles. So here it's telling us in this congruence statement that triangle JKL is congruent to triangle RST. And looking at the colors, you can tell the sides and angles that match up. So in blue are angle J and angle R. Those are the corresponding angles, one pair of them. Another pair of corresponding angles is angle K and angle S. And then the third pair of corresponding angles is angle L and angle T. Similarly, the sides are proportional, or the sides are congruent. So like JK here is going to go with RS. And similarly, RT is going to go with JL. And then finally, LK is going to go with TS. And that's kind of described over here. So we're just lining things up. And we have to look specifically at the picture and how it's marked. It's easiest to begin with the angles. So if I look at this picture, I notice that angle A is marked the same as angle F. Those two correspond to each other. Angle B is marked the same as angle D, and angle C is the same as angle E. If I say the letters, the segments, so like AB is purple-green, that's going to go with FD, purple-green. BC is going to go with DE. And finally, AC is going to go with FE. And the order of those letters matters. You can't say the segments in the opposite order. Same thing for the congruent statement. If I say ABC, I have to say FDE. Now, usually this just makes a lot of sense to people, and they're like, oh, this isn't hard, right? Angle T here goes with angle X. Angle R with angle Z, and angle S with angle Y. Similarly, ST goes with YX. TR goes with XZ, and RS goes with ZY. So if I want to say the congruent statement, SRT, what letters would those go with? SRT. Right, that would go with YZX. Perfect. Now the triangles can get turned around, so it can get a little trickier. And again, I would always start with the angles. So I look at angle R is marked with a triple mark, so that's going to go with angle M. Colors can always help you, like Q here is going to go with N. Doing them in 3 different colors will make it a lot easier. Then when I go to the sides, if I say SQ, now I could say, oh, that's green-purple. That's going to go with NP. Or SR is going to go with PM. And RQ is going to go with MN. So the congruence statement, QSR, is going to go with NPM. Order of the letters matters. Now we're going to mark pictures. So it's kind of the opposite. They're telling us how they match up, that ABC goes with YZX. So here is going to go with here. And then here with here, and here with here. And you have to mark all 3 pairs of sides and all 3 pairs of angles. So maybe like 2 marks there, maybe a triple mark there and there. Marking all 3 sides and all 3 angles. This one's a little bit trickier, so I'm going to really depend on the congruent statement that's telling me that S goes with F. I might do the angles first. And then T goes with E. Second letter, third letter, third letter. Then that's going to help me when I get to my segments, like the one between 1 and 2 is going to go between 1 and 2. And between 1 and 3 is going to go between 1 and 3, and then these 2 will go together, marking the picture. Sometimes we have actual numbers, right? So sometimes we'll have actual numbers. So you're going to see things, if I start with the angles again, that little m. That m means the measure of. So angle B corresponds with angle L because of the congruence statement. So it's not saying angle B is congruent to angle L, it's saying that measure of angle B matches the measure of angle L, that it's 108. Similarly, M, which is the last letter, is going to match with C, so M and C go together, so that's going to be 32, and then the A goes with K, which is 40. When you get to the sides, it wants an actual number. This is a little subtle. It's the equal sign that tells you that it's a number. If you look up here, it was a congruence sign. When it's a congruent sign, it wants letters. When it's an equal sign, it wants numbers. Now, I'll make sure and cue you up for that because that's real subtle. So let's see, KM. KM is going to go with AC, so that's 45. LM here is going to go with the 28, and then AB goes with the 22. So it wants actual side lengths. Same thing here, I'm going to start with the angles again. So the angles, let's see, angle A goes with angle D. So angle D here is going to be 85. Those two go together. The 65, F and C go together, so that's 65, leaving angle E for 30. So those two go together, and sometimes some kind of markings can help like that. Let's see, BA, that's going to go with, let's see, BA is going to go with ED. Yep, BA then is 17, DF is going to be 8, and then BC 19. I want to point out this phrase here, corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, or we call it Cpctc. That's going to become bigger later in the chapter, but we're introducing it now. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. What that says is the parts that match up are equal. Specifically equal in number. All the angles that match up are equal numbers, and all the sides that match up are equal numbers. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. And eventually we're going to need to memorize that phrase. But for now, we will just introduce it and introduce the idea of congruent triangles and corresponding sides and corresponding angles.